recording. Sure, it's been a while. Hey? I actually don't know how to start.
Well, considering that we have started, I think I'll do the formalities and introducing the newest father to the podcast, the hashtag Beertime podcast, T-Bone Troy.
This
Ding,
guy.
ding, ding.
Shot, Mazza.
So that has been...
Shot for that introduction.
I'll do what I can. But T-Bone, has that basically been why there's been this little bit of a block and silence from hashtag Beertime?
There are a host of reasons why hashtag Beertime's kind of been on the down low, but that we can talk about that another time. I want to talk about you. I want to talk
but
about.
First we need the official hashtag Beertime introduction. So
do you want me to introduce? Do you want me? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen,
it's about being back. Hype it up.
It is about being back, and it has been. Sure, I think the last episode was August last year, 2020.
Yeah.
And it's now a new year. It's one of those things where you like flip it. It's March already. I thought it was January, but I've just been itching to get back behind the microphone, itching to talk to you. But yeah, I know you were in Cape Town for a bit. And we just ran out of time, but we did get to have a sneaky beer. But then I thought, no, man, there's still much to talk about. So I want to know how are you going? How are things for those of the people who don't know? You're in a small little country called Netherlands, and you're living in Amsterdam now.
Yeah, I'm below sea level.
Why are you there?
We've never lived overseas, and Cara got a fantastic job offer to come overseas and work here. So we thought it would be a great option, and it's been everything that we've hoped. Been very exciting. I mean, absolutely for no other reason other than we're looking for an adventure. Decided it would be cool to stay overseas, and desperately miss Cape Town. Obviously, it's probably one of the most unbeatable best places on the planet, but this has just been such an awesome time. So we're really stoked with the decision.
You've been there what, 6 months now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's flown by. But also having come back in December, and that just took a long time to come back. So we basically been here for 4 months.
Sorry, I was just burping.
Just working through it.
Yeah. had to fill the old tummy before we start drinking some beer.
Nice to eat, eh? You told me to only get 2 beers ready, and I didn't listen. I've got 4 in case I need them.
Oh no, I've actually been calming down during the week. I actually don't drink Monday to Thursday, just to
fantastic.
So
thank goodness it's Sunday.
So my tolerance is still. I think it was last weekend or the weekend before where I had 6 beers on this Friday, and I was done. I was done. And when you think 6 beers, that's a cheeky night out with the mates. But
it's a cheeky pre-game before the night out.
Yeah, and I wasn't used to it, so I felt a little bit terrible the next day. But no, look.
I don't think that comes down to T-Bone. Sorry, I don't think that comes down to you sort of your tolerance changing. I think that comes down to a switch gets flicked as soon as Ollie was there. Your little baby burrito, wrapped up tight. You instantly said, "Oh, I can only handle 6 beers now." Done.
Well, okay, maybe there is some logic behind that. But it's
not your decision. It's a subliminal switch.
It is. It's very scientific of you. But I'll do some more research behind that. But let's get into it. I think we've spoken for quite some time now, and we haven't had a sip of beer. So should we do what we do best on hashtag Beertime?
Let's do it. What are you cracking there?
Oh,
I
I'm
need to know what I'm
cracking.
going to get into first.
I'm cracking. I'm going to hold it up to the screen for the people listening. You'll have to watch later. But look at this beautiful extra hoppy lager from a little known brewery in Cape Town called Jump. Mazza.
All the way over here, these things aren't light.
Oh, cheers. Yeah.
So T-Bone, this is also something to note that normally when we do a show, we're splitting this between the both of us.
Yes.
So,
So cheers. Bonk. So let me have a sip. Oh, man. Okay. Before I get too carried away, I'm going to get too carried away, but I'll give you some airtime here. Talk to me, for those of the people who don't know, Jump is obviously your new baby. Talk to us about the backstory. Why did you call it Jump? What possessed you to get into the beer game again, and what you've been doing?
T-Bone, I think the short answer of getting back into the beer game is I love it. I think the people in it are fantastic. The industry's like, it's got so much room to still grow. Yeah, like case in point. There's so much room for it to grow. It's constantly changing. People are there's so many consumers learning about it and becoming such big fans. And I think the short answer is I just love the industry. With Metal Lane having closed for various reasons, mainly it not really having the opportunity to be able to grow into a tap room, and I mean that sort of worked out quite well with COVID happening. I started seeing during the lockdown times how breweries were becoming more, they were having to just this constant, like everyone was talking about the constant hoops that they were having to jump through to be able to get beer able to be sold. And within, like, the ban was closed, but then everyone saw that it was going to be opening, and all the breweries were saying, okay, cool, well, you saw it happen before your eyes. Everyone's saying, well, we have to go online. We have to be able to sell our beer online. You'd see Instagram profiles saying, go buy our beer online. And that was something, like, if you place your order before the ban lifts, it will be delivered to your door the day that the ban opens, kind of thing. And that was, that took the consumer's perception of, before that, there's not a single chance I would ever have said, let me go online and order some beer. I would have just walked down to the closest bottle store and bought what was available there. So that was quite a big shift for me in seeing that, and then saying, yo, there's maybe a little bit of an opportunity to do something. And I just looked at all the things that were such a headache for me when I was at Metal Lane. So sending beers to a bottle store, they only really want to take like 12 beers unless you can give them like really good economies of scale, or like really good prices like the big breweries can. You haven't filtered and you haven't pasteurized, so generally your beer is going to be sitting on a shelf, so you're stoked to get the sale, but then your beer is probably sitting in an refrigerated shelf, or it's like at the back and it's not really coming out. So then you're getting people tasting your beer and they're really not getting the experience that they're supposed to. So it was that was one of the things, is I was just like, I struggled with having to sell 12 beers to this bottle store, and then when people eventually drink it, it's just shit, and it's been marked up. So it's really nice to be able to only sell online, which is I mean, some people are still adjusting to that and being like, I can't find your beer in the bottle store, but it's great that it lets me manage it, and I know that if you're getting the beer, it's coming from cold storage, it's been packaged, and it's limited quantity, gone from cold storage basically into your hands, delivered to you, or whether you're collecting. And it's limited to half cases and full cases. So I'm not having to schlep 6 cans all the way out to the northern suburbs, and then they don't get stored. So it's just solved a lot of issues. And because it's small batches, it feels like it's pretty limited risk in terms of, if it's not everyone's favorite beer, it will still sell out, because it's not like I'm producing 20,000 liters of it.
So from basically what you said, it sounds like while the industry is, well, majority of the industry has suffered through 2020, you know, there's all those stories where some breweries or some new guys like yourself have actually thrived with this new, let's just say the speeding up process of online ordering.
Yeah.
So I think what COVID's done is it's exactly what I just said now. It's kind of sped up the whole process of what was meant to be coming down the pipe track in the next 10 years has actually just happened in the last 6 months.
Yeah, I think that, and that's part of the exciting aspect of the craft beer industry that I was missing is there's constant change. There's always stuff, as you said, it would have happened maybe in a year or 2 years or 4 or 5 years time or whatever, but it's just sped it up. Like the innovation within the industry and where the consumers are going and how everyone's thinking about buying or what they're thinking of buying or what they're considering drinkable or not drinkable or new styles that they're willing to explore is just constantly changing and evolving. So yeah, you definitely summed it up. I think it just pushed the fast forward button to getting to a position where people are just willing to do it.
So let's double tap on that, the consumer discovering new styles.
Yeah,
maybe talk about your brand, and your, I mean, it's amazing artwork and it's exciting recipes and exciting styles, but talk to us about why Jump? Why the name Jump?
Sorry, you asked me that and I didn't answer it the first time.
And that's, you know, one of us has to be switched on. One of us has to come back and just make sure our listeners get what they paid for.
Yeah, and you did it very nicely. Like I don't feel like an idiot, but I know that I am, but I don't feel like one. You brought it back very gently. Thanks, T-Bone. Okay, so yeah, it was just one of those things that looking at it, obviously again during lockdown, every time that I looked at it, I thought, this probably won't work, and maybe the online sales won't actually work, and maybe the fact that it's limited batch, people won't understand. And there was always these hurdles that I was thinking will be the final like block to it being able to work. And then I thought, like, if I don't try it, I'll never know, kind of thing. Yeah. Let me just jump out of the airplane and build my parachute on the way down, or let me just like take the leap of faith and do it. And with all of these things,
jump.
Like naming it
and jump.
Yes, yeah.
Did I beat you to the punchline?
Yeah. So with these things, there's a lot of naming is I find one of the toughest things, because you come up with something and you think that sounds quite cool, and then you tell the next person, and then you're like, shit, I probably shouldn't have said that out loud. It sounds super shit. And I just like the sort of movement that Jump gave, and the idea for it behind me was very clear. Yeah. And then there's also a little bit of, like, funnily enough, there's also a little bit of legacy behind it. In my dad started his own film company, like the small little production company, quite a few years ago, and he also called it Jump for the exact same reason. And I only found out when I was starting this, saying like, yeah, but I want to call it like Leap or this or whatever because of this reasons. And he was like, well, I called my company Jump because it was the same thing. We were taking like a leap of faith.
That's cool.
So, and he was like, you're welcome to call it Jump if you want. So I was like, it's got like a little bit of an extra layer to it.
Oh, so that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So now your dad has double reason to expect free stock.
Well, I mean, he basically works, he's one of the employees. so he doesn't get free stock. He basically works for it.
That's good. Maybe I'll go visit him on a Friday and just have a few beers with him.
Please, he would be very, very stoked if you went and sunk a couple of toots with him. I promise you.
Go sink a few beers while the boss is not there.
Yeah, exactly. Dip into the stock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is your second batch, and as you said, it's a limited batch. You only do like 1,000 cans, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, so it's 4,000 cans and 1,500 liters. So 1,500 liter brew, but depending on what you get out. So if you put in like a really big, like double dry hopped, like lots of trub coming out of the tank, then
Yeah.
you're going to lose quite a lot of it. But yeah, it depends what you're making. If you've got quite a crisp, clean beer, you can probably get closer to the 1500 than if you're putting a ton of hops in it.
But this is fantastic. I mean, it's not, obviously we're mates, and obviously I bought some, but it not trying to sell it, but yeah, maybe I am trying to sell it. But it's a fantastic summer beer. It's that beer that's you focus on that season. I was asked this question. I actually get asked this question quite a bit. What's the beer of the season to drink? Last year I was punting Jack Black Cape Pale Ale quite a bit because it was really that sessional, easy drinking beer.
And I
and
like
what
the
I felt,
size of the can as well.
yeah,
I thought the can size was so fantastic because it was so sessionable.
But also, especially with the history of Jack Black in them, that they were always looking for a pale ale version that was localized. Taking a feather out of Sierra Nevada's cap, and creating a pale ale that people would gravitate towards in their local beer drinking scene. But
yeah,
to your beer, to the point of your beer, I think your beer now has become the beer of the season, because it's the first beer in a long time that it's so sessionable. You can drink it. It's easy. I think what's happened in the South African scene is that sometimes when you get a beer, it's too filling. Maybe it doesn't entice you to, maybe, I'm not painting a nice picture for the South African beer scene, but I'm just talking in general in the past, where sometimes you would maybe have 2 or 3, whereas this one I could have 6. I could.
Yeah.
It's an easy sessionable beer, and it just works. Everything's just balanced.
Well, thanks, T-Bone. I think, sorry to jump in there, but I think basically I know what you're saying with it being jump in. I think what you're saying with it is it's this like ebb and flow of going through a really rapidly growing market where people have been around, where there were the like super flavorful amber ales. You don't even see amber ales anymore, but it was like amber ales and like the original IPAs and all of that. And that was like, geez, this is what beer can be. And those people have sort of had quite a lot of those high focus, high flavor, like high intensity beers. And then being able to, they go through the ebb and flow of like, cool, I'm hitting that top of the peak of what I can have of these super hectic beers. And like, I'm looking for something just a little bit more mellow and smooth. And even though I still love those, like that's being able to appreciate those ones that aren't like as hectic and as intense.
Yeah.
But on the sessionability of this, I promise you, I've had a couple of people who've said like, yeah, I put some in the fridge and I was going to have one tonight, and they're like, I'm 5 down, and like, why not just have the 6th?
Yeah.
So I've done the same thing. I've definitely sat down not by myself, but I've sat down when other people have maybe been having wine or whatever. I've just crashed through 6 of them by myself too.
It's easy too.
Very, very easy. But yeah, I think it's an interesting style, because what I want to do is make sure that every batch that comes out is really keeping people like within the ring of them being excited for the next batch. So I never want to come out with like a I don't know, like an equivalent of just a normal straight up lager, even though it could be a fantastic lager.
Yeah.
I want to have a bit of a spin to it, or a bit of a twist, so that it feels like it's pushing it out a little bit more. So this was quite tough to commit to. And I did want it to come out for the December holidays, but because it was the alcohol ban and you weren't allowed to sell, you couldn't get it out there. So it was luckily enough, because it's a lager, sitting in the tank for an extra month, it just made it better. But yeah, it's basically supposed to have been out maybe a month and a half before it was released.
Wow. I think everything happens for a reason, and I'm super happy this thing happened. Super happy about the extra hoppy lager. But I want to come back. You touched on 2 points there. The first thing I want I want to talk about. You spoke about the ebb and flow. I always like to witness the what's the word, the experienced consumer go full circle in terms of discovering craft beer and discovering, as you said, an IPA, an amber ale, and what beer can be. And I always found it interesting because I still am on this journey, but I'd always find it interesting how people would go full circle all the way around to the point at where they started, and that was lager, where they would go and they would try, for example, a Hansa Pilsner, which uses a very specific hop. It's the SARS hop. And I mean, I can only smile at that because you go around and you start to appreciate those finer qualities, which whether or not AB InBev or SAB intended for that quality appreciation, I think it's quite, I don't know, maybe poetic, where you're now, as you said, you've got this lager beer, but it's double dry hopped with 4 different types of hops. So I find that whole circle very interesting, where people can start to appreciate lagers, but the more specific ingredients that go into that lager, and not just a chugging beer, or not just something to put in the funnel and drink by the pool.
Yeah, but I think, T-Man, I think we actually spoke about this a couple of years back. When we
Am I repeating myself?
No. I'm saying we personally were speaking about it a couple of years back when we were doing some BJCP judging, and we were talking about how the beers that were winning the BJCP judges, whether it's like the National Beer Trophy or whatever, always seemed to be the beer that was just like, they always deserved it, but it always seemed to be the beer that was like jam-packed with more flavor. It was always like the Russian Imperial Stout that had like a super complex but rounded and balanced, like big flavor, from like vanilla to roasted coffee and chocolates to like bourbon and all of that. Super well made, super balanced and everything. And I remember us talking about it, saying in the equivalent sort of judging competition within the States, there's lagers winning, and there's beers that are just being made incredibly well, and there's an appreciation for them as well. And I think that also ties hand in hand with you saying like whether the SAB or the AB InBevs or those guys, whether they intended the consumer to make that full loop. And I've always said, for everyone who knocks these beers, whether it's like a Budweiser or a Castle or a Castle Light or whatever, those beers sell the way they do, and those breweries get bought and pay for other breweries the prices that they do because they are producing good beer. Like SAB is not going to sell for 1.4 trillion rand if you selling shit beer, and Budweiser is not going to be worth this much if it's a shit beer. Like, a lot of people drink it for a reason. I can show you what shit beer tastes like, and there's not that many of it like out there. Like, it won't be around. So I think it's a lager is the beer of the world. But yeah, I don't know. I think it does go full circle back for a number of different situations. So it's a very interesting point. It's a nice way to put it like that, because it is
I wonder if that circle is continuous. So I wonder, once you get to that lager, if you do then spiral upwards, maybe it's a 3D cone where you meant to illuminate or just be rediscover different levels.
Scientific, this, eh?
I don't even know if I'm using the right words.
I can picture it, but maybe it's because I don't know. Like, it sounds like there's something extra in this beer that we're drinking. We're both like super trippy at the moment.
But I am finished my first one, and I do have a second one that I'm going to go crack open. Can I excuse myself?
Bodie, you can do whatever you want. I'm not sure whether you edit this, whether I can do some inappropriate stuff, or
you can do whatever you want. I'm going to stand up. I've got clothes on. Don't worry. Oh, I must say, I have become a lot more accustomed to using online meeting places like Zoom or Microsoft Teams.
For sure. But T-Bone, I will say that you are very clued up with your setup. Your sound is great. Your editing is fantastic. You know what's up. You may be a dad, but you're keeping up with the times very, very well. I mean, look at that. Look at that bulky. That is a specific prime example. That is visible, whereas the podcast is more of an experience, if you know what I mean.
Well, I appreciate those kind words. It doesn't always seem like I know what's going around. And I mean, there's just so much new technology. Say again?
Who told you that?
No, there's just so much new technology and programs coming out, but I'm doing my best. What's you opening there? What's that? What you got there?
This is I've never had this, but I've heard very good things about Valhalla Brewery. They are based up in the north of Amsterdam, so they're over the River A.
Yeah.
And they produce some really consistently good beers. Like I said, I haven't had, but the people in the know, and when I say the people in the know, there's quite a few specialty beer shops here where you can go into it and you can ask the guy behind the counter, like, I'm looking for a West Coast IPA that's super piney and resiny and has like these characteristics, and he'll just be like, okay, cool, try this, and this, and take you to the section, and there's like 10 of just that style of beer. And then there's like a couple hundred other beers in the store, all different. And so the people in those types of stores have said that I must definitely try some Valhalla, and I thought being on the podcast, trying some local beers is a good idea.
Oh, that is fantastic. There are a few directions which we're going off here now, and I want to try and remember one thing that we were supposed to come back to, but that is, let's just talk about that beer. It's called Loki, and it's a golden ale.
A golden IPA.
A golden IPA, my goodness.
So I don't know whether that means that it's a golden ale that's been hopped up, or whether it means it's just like a golden colored IPA with very little. Cheers. What's that, Boney?
It's jump number 2.
Gee, whoa. Lucky man.
Yeah.
Not in front of you, please. Not in front of the kids.
So, okay, this does kind of tie back around to what I wanted to talk about in terms of the South African beer scene and what happened last year. But we can kind of get there slowly. But what you spoke about now, where it seems like there's a high intensity or just a higher level of education in the retail markets over there in Europe, whether it's in Amsterdam or Germany or wherever, Great Britain. You've got those retail stores where there's one, a person behind the counter who knows his stuff, and which
is huge,
which is a game changer, and then 2, there's the beers are organized by styles, where you've got a wall of IPA, a wall of lagers, or etc., and that's what's missing in South Africa. I think we've often spoke about how South Africa is always just a little bit behind. We are now starting to get to baby steps, one thing at a time. We're now, I feel, making exceptional beers. We've ticked that box off quite a while ago. It's now beers which you can say, cool, this is an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. It's no longer this is a 5 out of 10, because that's where we were. 5-6 years ago, that's the beers in South Africa they're average. But that would be amazing. I know that the biggest little beer shop in Durbanville, they're a small shop, but I think they do try and arrange their beers by style. But
I think one of the more educated areas to go to.
But that would be amazing when we do have that full package for the consumer to go to a retail store, a specifically a designated beer store where that guy behind the counter loves beer just as much as you do.
probably more.
It must be lekker
but
being in Europe and being exposed to that.
Yeah, I think I absolutely love it. I've been exposed to so many beers that I've never heard like, or breweries that I've never heard of or seen of that are so like producing such amazing beer that I've started my own. And I wasn't very like much for this.
You started your own podcast.
No, no. I'm already involved in one.
Oh.
Quite invested.
Oh.
Yeah, quite invested in one. So I've started an Untapped profile just so I can keep track of all the different beers that I've had, because it's so exciting, the variety of beer that you can get hold of here, just because it's more accessible. And like you said earlier, there's so many different things I can talk to on this, and I can go in so many different directions. So I'm going to try sort of go out and bring it back. But I think the reason that there's such a different variety is obviously, number one, it's so much more accessible. It's just closer there's a lot of the breweries are in Europe, and Heineken's here, so they own quite a few breweries. And then also the States is not that far away, so they're bringing in, AB InBev has got so many like things over here, so they're bringing in all your like Goose Island, and all of those beers are so Lagunitas, you get all of that stuff here.
Amazing.
But I also think it's because of the situation, the education behind it is also like, Europe has been producing beer for so long, and it also relates to the fact that I think the seasons are so different. So the winters are so much colder than our winters in South Africa, and the summers are hot and like long days. So the winters, people are really like, it's not like a winter in South Africa where you get a little bit cold or whatever, and then you crack open a castle and you like crush your castle. It's like, it's properly cold. So you're drinking Glühwein, or you're drinking like a good like 10% beer.
Yeah.
And you're not smashing those beers. So you've got your understanding of, okay, cool, we've got our heavy beers for the winter time, we've got our light beers for the summertime. So that already creates this, we've just got like lager in South Africa, and we're trying to like go on either side of that lager up and down. Whereas in Europe, they've got like the lager, and they've got the heavy big beers. So I think it's a combination of just the education of people having drunk beer for a lot longer here, and being exposed to styles that in South Africa we would term craft. You know, so if you haven't like a double in South Africa, you're like, have you tried this craft beer? And you're like, it's not a craft beer. It's just another style that we don't necessarily get frequently in South Africa.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it all ties into these stores. The fact that there is a higher educated market, which means there are more educated consumers, which means that people are more willing to bring in these super interesting beers that, you know, you can see. There's this beer store I went into the other day called Stack, and I've never seen, I took a video of it, and it's over a minute long, and there's just more beers in that place than I've ever seen. I think it's the biggest beer selection in Europe. And there's massive sections with like maybe 100 different styles of beers that are just like barrel aged sours. 100 different styles of beers and just barrel aged sours. You can get beers in there. Every single Omnipollo beer that's probably ever been made is in that store. Like,
amazing.
You can get your Verdants, you can get your there's just everything. I saw it
sounds like the red light district, but for beer.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Except it's a little bit less like taboo. You know, you're
allowed to touch the cans and put them back.
You can take photos of the cans as well. Yeah. But yeah, I saw a single beer for 55 euros, it was even more Jesus. I think
Evil Twin.
Yeah.
Evil Twin.
55 euros but it was like a barrel aged version. So it's 1,000 rand for a single beer.
And was it a double can, like a big can, or what?
It was in a bottle, but it was in like a maybe 600 ml, maybe 700 ml bottle. Like, I don't even think it was a 750.
So what did it taste like?
It was fantastic. The second one tasted even better.
Yeah, I could only buy it in a 6-pack.
Yeah, they were only selling cases. So yeah, I'm gonna have one next.
So things are good overseas for you.
So yeah, but I mean, it's interesting as you say that, because it's just different. I mean, our consumers back home, they're still, and I don't mean this in a bad way, it's just the people who aren't drinking craft beer, as soon as you start drinking it and you start knowing it and understanding it and knowing the breweries, you very seldom come across new stuff. It's like, you know the breweries, you know what they produce, you know what your go-tos are, and it stays like that. So I always say to other people, if you go into a bottle store, and if say it's a fairly big bottle store, you're going to walk in there, the thing that's taking up the most space on the shelves is wine. So you don't walk in there and say, yes, it's super saturated wine market, like, look at all of this wine. But you say, okay, if you break it down and you say, that's the red wine, that's the white wine. Within the red wine, we've got our Merlots and like our Shiraz, and you break that all down, and those are all in sections.
Yeah.
And it's exactly as you said. And then you've got your white wine. So if you know what you're looking for, you've actually got quite a limited amount of scope for what sort of wine you're looking for. If you go in and saying, I need to get a bottle of wine, it is overwhelming. And that's why people say they've only ever known like Castle, Black Label, like Hunter, and now they're going and saying, okay, cool, shit. And I think that's actually a really good point. If you categorizing them based on these are your IPAs, these are your golden ales, these are your pale ales, whatever, then it's going to be a lot less intimidating.
So what's the answer then? What's the solution? Is it just more breweries in South Africa that are making more beer, different styles?
I think it's just patience.
Yeah.
It's patience and doing whatever we can to educate consumers, because as soon as consumers are educated on a different style to try, they are going to be more willing to try new stuff. And at the moment, like the breweries that are smashing it are the breweries that are able to produce massive quantities of good lager.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. So unless you're supporting the small guy willing to push the boat out and make something exciting, everyone's sort of channeled towards making beers that are super palatable and not that aggressive. And in the market, I feel like it's a little bit of a, like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You either fitting in with doing like the limited, not assaulting people's senses, or you are pushing it out completely and being like, this is different. And there's no like in between where you can do both.
I like that though. I like that there's a bit of patience that's required. I think patience from the consumer point of view, from the brewer's point of view. I think it's, if you went up to a South African brewer now and said you need to have patience, I think he or she might smack you in the face.
In the nuts, yeah.
Yeah, it's even now, as we've come out of the third alcohol ban, I'm privy to a lot of things that are happening in the industry, and especially new breweries that are closing. And I mean, I just found out that, I'm not going to spill the beans, but there is a big brewery that's closing. And I can't say anything right now because it's not public knowledge, but it's this kind of thing where, cool, we're allowed to sell alcohol. We've been allowed to sell alcohol since February, 1st of February. But even then, with cash and cash flow and running a business, salaries of staff, the increase in tax levies, it's all this thing that's just like, what's the point in a brewery trying to continue? So it's very sad, the situation in South Africa, but it is, I mean, you do kind of appreciate now the guys that are hanging in there, that are making the beer, and in some kind of aspect, some kind of realm, it's not going to help tremendously, but I've personally tried to buy more beer from the breweries directly because I know what they're going through. So I hope the breweries that are there, that are still hanging in, still are there at the end of the year, regardless of whether we get a further ban. But it's been quite a hectic 20 weeks of no trading. We're coming up to a year of lockdown in South Africa.
Yeah. Is that what it is? 20 weeks of no trading in total?
Yeah, it was 20, I think it was 19 or 20 weeks of no trading, which is, it's heavy.
That's a lot. It's almost half the year.
Especially when the craft beer, or I suppose the beer industry is just, it's so regulated and so tough to get in the first place with licensing, and then you're just not allowed to trade or make money. Yeah, and it's very very sad. But I kind of wanted to talk about the South African industry and what happened in 2020. Let me put it to you. What are your kind of hopes for the beer industry? And you can talk obviously about your brand, but I mean, what are your market predictions?
I'd prefer to speak about it in general. But I think South Africans are incredibly resilient, and they're also, South Africans are ridiculously resilient, and I think they're also, based on how COVID has been in South Africa, we had one of the strictest lockdowns in the world, and I think that sort of shows within the second lockdown and where the levels and cases are within. I mean, I'm no statistician. I'm not going to attempt that again, but I don't think like the way COVID is going in South Africa at the moment, it doesn't seem like there's such thing as COVID. People are like going full tilt, and I think that's obviously people have varying ideas and viewpoints on that, but I don't think there's much more capacity for more people to get COVID. Like, I think everyone's basically had it. Like, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if there is a level of herd immunity in South Africa. If I speak to people that I know, I know very few people who haven't had it. So I think that sort of ties into the fact of what's going on with the beer industry is because we're so resilient as South Africans. So whether that's the actual brewers themselves and the owners and the people that are getting stuck in behind the scenes in the beer industry, or whether it's the consumer's had enough, and they're like, I'm not going to like sit around and when I say the consumer, like the average South African is having a jaw at the moment. It's like South Africa is basically open, and you can do what you want. It's level one. You can go lick a escalator handrail and you're probably going to be fine. That's where it's at the moment.
Just give a disclaimer that people should not do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. Listen, you'll probably die of something else before COVID if you do lick one of those things. But I definitely think that people are coming into this like looking for, and South Africa's going out of some at the moment, but I think people are coming into this like, we need to let loose, and I think that's going to be good for the industry. You know, people really appreciate the fact that they can now go to a tap room and that they can go sit down and order a pint, and stuff that was maybe sort of semi taken for granted, or 100% was, that you could just go into a restaurant, and the worst part about it was that you were, I don't know, like parting with money. Now you're so desperate to go sit down and you just want to, like, you know that you're supporting the establishment or the brewery or whatever's drink that you're consuming, and you just can't think of anything better. You appreciate it so much more now. So I don't know. I think 2021 is going to be good. If, however it plans out, if there's a third wave or a fourth wave or whatever wave we're on at the moment, unless there's another level of lockdown, I think people are going to appreciate it. And I think the industry is going to go through a little bit of a, after it's taken its dip, I think it's going to be back on the up. But as I say, my word is not gospel. So that's just how I hope. That's what I see happening. Let's hope I'm right. Everyone deserves it. The people in the industry have worked their asses off, and they deserve it 100%.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You do speak, you know, some truth in terms of the South African mentality, where people are just kind of fed up But I also think on the other side of the coin, people, consumers, and brewers absolutely do not want another locked alcohol ban, because
Nobody
that's just, I mean, it'll just be a stuff up. So there is that level of thought in the back of the mind where, okay, cool, I'm going to party, but also I'm going to kind of be apprehensive. I'm not going to put the foot flat down. I'm going to go to the bar, and whatever regulations are in place in the establishments, I'm going to adhere to them and listen to them, whether I believe in them or not, because I want to be able to come back next week and the next week, and have my pints, or have my 750 ml bottle, or whatever it is that they want. So I think there is a element of tiptoeing into the industry back again, but it is. Hopefully, there is, like you said, a void of a thirsty void of people wanting to get back into it and suck it back in. We're getting scientific now about.
It's like this. It's like you slipstreaming on a bicycle. There's this space that it's gone from this and it's suctioned down, and now it's creating this like suction of people just going to be
a suction. Okay, we can. Yeah. Okay. So let's shift gears. Let's talk about. I like how we spoke about what 2021 is going to bring. What's new on your cards? What can you give us an update on for the year ahead? It's getting into summer. What are your plans?
Yeah. Who knows here? Old Boris has taken every single person's vaccine in the whole of Europe. So we're struggling. I don't know what the vaccine situation is here. I read an article the other day saying that everyone will be vaccinated by June, but you kind of do believe it.
Yeah.
Because they are quite transparent about that sort of stuff. But you can also definitely feel a sense of people getting very overture, and you don't really mess around. Like, the rules are the rules. So if you're not allowed to do this, you don't do it.
Yeah.
But the other day in the park, there were I've never seen it so full in my life. And the day after that, so they sort of rallied everyone up, and they got police throughout the whole park, and they got everyone out. And that park has now been closed for a week. So, as you say,
because it was hot weather, what?
It was good weather, but everyone just sort of also it's sort of spiraled out of control, because then you see videos on social media, and then you're like, that looks so epic, like, let's go to it. It's just because there's an energy and a buzz. So everyone's keen to go to it.
Yeah.
Then you go to the park, and then that's sort of like, it becomes this attraction, and everyone goes there. So it's good weather and it's a good vibe. And the next thing you know, the park is just fuller than it's ever been, and then they shut it down. So, and that's a sign of people just being absolutely tired of being told what to do.
Yeah.
And being
locked up indoors. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, and especially now. Thank goodness we're coming out of winter, but the sun comes up late and it goes down early, and you're stuck inside the whole day, and you get excited to go to your grocery shop. Like, so it's pretty desperate.
You don't buy for the week, you just buy for that day, and then you.
Yeah, exactly. But it's changed now. The sun's come up a lot earlier, and it's going down sort of at 7:45 or so. So it's lekker. But yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see plans based on what we're allowed to do. But yeah, let's see.
So what I was kind of warming or alluding to was my plans for the next year, 2021.
Yes.
About, we spoke a little bit. Obviously, I don't know where the time has gone, but obviously I went through a bit of a phase last year where I was really excited about all the things that was happening with the soup projects, all the breweries converting their tanks to soup. And I thought that was a really positive story, which I still kind of feel, I'm hoping it'll kind of pick up for government to kind of see what the craft brewers are doing. And yeah, I think with what happened with Beertime was that the second lockdown, I just think it took a lot of steam and wind out of the sails of everyone. Things were getting busy for me as a father. Oliver's now 11 months old, so he's full on. Whereas if they're under 6 months, they just lie there. They don't do anything.
Yeah.
But now that he's crawling and he's moving and he's engaging, it becomes a bit busy. But I've had this vision or itch, so to speak, in terms of where to take #Beertime. And I think, like you said, it ties back nicely to your story about just taking that leap and just jumping, because you always, when you want to start something or when you want to take action for something, your brain will always kind of come up with hurdles or things along the line where it's not going to happen and why it shouldn't happen. And I think that's what's always been preventing me from taking Beertime to the next level. And I think the next level is a continuation of the podcast, but maybe branching out to different formats in terms of video. But I always knew that, but I never really thought how or why. But I think what I was missing was casting out a wider net. And I think I will always love beer, but there are just so many other things that I'm interested in. I'm not going to go through them now, but it's just all these things where I was just like, well, do I just keep Beertime talking about beer, or do I talk about someone else who knows absolutely nothing about beer, but is an expert in their field, and then we can talk about that? For example, a rocket scientist, or a psychologist, or maybe even a child psychologist who can talk about parenting, but a musician, an artist, or someone. And I think that's maybe, it ties nicely to the overall beer industry, where we try and see what's within our circle. We see who are the beer drinkers, and we try and get them to drink our specialty craft beer, whereas we should be looking outside the circle and trying to including everyone and making the beers accessible. So what I want to do for Beertime 2.0, I'm calling, I don't know why Beertime 2.0, but that's just where I'm going.
We got a spitball. We're going to work on that.
Exactly. Is that I want to impart my knowledge on beer to people who know nothing, and then I want to learn something about their side, their expertise, or something that I'm interested in, because I think that's maybe the way to go. What are your thoughts?
I think that's brilliant. I mean, there's so much positivity in that, or so much good, so many good points in that I think it makes so much sense. First of all, you are not limiting yourself to just a single consumer group of beer drinkers. And second of all, I think you're a very well-read person, so I think you'll be able to have really good. You will have very good points that you can rattle off and relatable topics and insight. I mean, just you. The way.
To be honest, Murray, I'll just take the last word of their sentence and just repeat it with a question, just to pretend I know what they're talking about.
Well, I mean, if you listen to this whole podcast today, the way you've segued has just blown my mind. I mean, the way you've jumped from topic to topic so smoothly, you're so smooth you can slide uphill right now. So I think that's
sweating here, by the way.
You're rinsing your shirt out after. And I think it's a fantastic idea, and I think it creates a lot of broaden your listener base hugely, and how exciting to be able to talk to people that are such experts in their field. I think those and I think that's essentially the people that you're speaking to on this podcast are people that are just so passionate about what they do that I always related to something, and I say, if I was a wall plasterer and all I did for my career was plaster walls, I would become passionate about it because I'd understand what is a good plastering, what's a bad plastering, and understand why and all of that. And then you can like talk about something like wall plastering for hours, whereas we just sort of take for granted, like, oh, this wall's been done, like, okay, cool, there's no cracks in it, it's perfect. And I think if you're talking to people who are experts in their field, they're going to be seriously insightful into stuff you've never thought about, and that can open up a whole different channel of thought and interest and awareness and appreciation for so many things. So I think it's a great idea. And I must apologize for not asking, because I'm so used to not being the co-host that normally I would have just returned that straight back to you and been like, well, T-Man, what are you up to? And I finished speaking and I was like, right, what's my next question?
Look, we're both a bit rusty, I think, because it's been such a long time. But no need to apologize. But I think I like that, because what you said, that there's that passion that the person has for their own industry, which I think anyone can feed off that. I think listening to that, because it's nice to see someone who has a passion for something, regardless of what it's in, because that gives the listener, that gives people a bit of sense of happiness or hope that there is, you can just follow that. You can just go start your you can just go start your contract brewing company if you want to, and there shouldn't be any hurdles. And I also I've been thinking about, I know a lot of people listen to Joe Rogan podcast, and there are a lot of aspects in which I respect and take lessons from. But he's big into MMA, and every few or so episodes, he has a guest on just to talk about that. So I thought, why can't hashtag Beertime be that, where we'll get a brewer on, but then some other times we'll talk about some other things. So
yeah, that's a brilliant idea, because I was relating it to that. I was like, oh, if you're going to get like a specialist in this or specialist in that, and I think his podcast did start from MMA, didn't it? And then he decided, oh, let me branch out. Or has it always been a full circle thing?
Sure. I mean, he's done a few thousand. I didn't even start to number one, but he still has a passion for MMA. So I think that's kind of where
he still commentates. So he's but yeah, I think that's where it's going. That's a good idea, T-Man. I'm excited to see that. And listen, if you need to dial in to co-host, just let me know. I'll be there.
Look, I think there's the point that I'm trying to tell myself is that I shouldn't set the bar, or I should just raise it to to a roof that's not there, because I'm limiting myself, and I should try and want to get international hosts. Or I mean, I've always wanted to travel and drink beer. I mean, wouldn't that just be that for me is my, when you look back and tell yourself, no, I've made it in life. That's my thing. When I get to travel for drinking beer, when people pay me to go drink beer, that's what I'm working at. So there, I've said it. It's on my podcast. So I think people need to.
I was going to say
accountable.
I think now that it's out there, you are accountable for it, and that's fantastic. That's the toughest part about it. Is if it's an idea and you don't actually take that leap and you're not actually doing it, then it's still, you still feel like, oh, like I'm working on this or whatever. But if you don't say it, then it's not happening.
Is there space on your couch by any chance for me to come?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we've got a spare bedroom, so you can definitely put in
Cool.
here. And
Maybe that's leg one where I kind of pay for myself to get over there and then
yeah, listen, I'll
and
drink
wrap
beer
it.
with you over here. We're allowed one guest in the house at the moment, so you can pull in.
Okay, good. Well, cool. Maybe don't say this is going out to the public, so maybe people might just kind of get hold of you and just steal my spot.
Yeah, no, don't you worry. It's open and ready and waiting for you whenever you want it.
Mazza, I think we've kind of chatted for, I think, close to an hour, which is good going. Which
Listen, this could go on.
I'm ready for a
way too
sleep.
long.
I'm ready. Hey, that's my Sunday.
Yeah, you sent Ollie and Lol's out there. They're going to be having a day while you're just going to be out on the couch.
Working.
Yeah. Don't interrupt my podcast.
Yeah. Oh, I should probably hang a sock on the front door.
I wouldn't do that. She's going to say, "Why did you send us out here? Who's in it?"
Mazza, yeah, dude, I want to thank you for taking the time. And do you have anything else you want to say just to the listeners in terms of Jump Brewing? What do you want the people listening to do in terms of Jump? Do you want them to buy the last remaining 6-packs? I know that there are only a handful left. I mean,
yeah,
we go through pretty quickly.
We passed halfway, so there's like, I'd say there's maybe 60 cases left. So those it goes through the ebbs and flows. You can see when it gets released, the people who love it, they go and they buy, and then they'll buy like their 2 cases or whatever, and then, or a case or 2 cases, and then it slows down a little bit, and then there's like the odd purchase here and there, but then when they've finished their cases or 2, it picks up again.
Okay.
So there's a lot of return customers, which is great.
That's where I'm at, because I know I bought one of your T-shirts, which I need to collect, and I'm actually going to collect it in time for. I need to get a new case because I think I've almost done. It's again. I've drunk what I thought was only 1 beer, but I've gone through 2. So it's just it's a brilliant marketing campaign what you've done in terms of.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the next batch will probably be brewed fairly soon. When I'm maybe, but the last 60 cases goes by pretty quickly because it gets to the point where, because it's limited edition, if people really love it, there are some people who end up buying like 3 cases because they're like, well, I just have to maybe stockpile a little bit. So it works well like that. It keeps the sales going. But yeah, the last 60 or so cases aren't going to hang around for too long, and then get excited for batch 3. There's going to be something exciting coming. I'm keen to get out there. Yeah.
I can see you hanging back because you want to almost.
No, you've got to keep.
If you want to drop a little hint there to the listeners of #Beertime, give us half a clue. Give us an ingredient.
I can't give. Will there be malt in it?
I should hope so.
A couple of hops and some yeast and water, maybe something else,
and fizzy
maybe
water.
Something.
Okay.
Yeah. The water goes in unfizzy, but then I fizz it up afterwards.
You get a straw. That's the old straw technique.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I can't give you too many clues because nothing's been confirmed yet. But I've got ideas of what I want, and we'll see how that goes. It's interesting because if you're thinking of constantly doing something different, there's only so much, you know, like. Creativity seems to take a bit of a knock. It's like, it feels a little bit like writer's block. Like, I don't want it to be too similar to the last or the first. And it's like, well, what can I do? And I want to hit quite a range of styles. So is it going to be, I don't think our markets, especially even coming into winter, I don't think we're close enough to winter either, but even coming into winter, I don't think our market's really going to smash out a dark beer. I don't think they're going to be buying a lot of dark beer. So that would really help it if the market was ready to drink quite a few. I'm really keen to do a couple of sours and some really interesting beers, a little bit of like a sour, but I feel the brand needs to progress through a couple of like absolute rock solid beers where people have been like, geez, I love that, and wow, I love that, and I love this, and I love that, before I bring out something where they've never had a sour, and then they're going to be like, oof, I need to get a little bit more traction.
You need to be seasoned.
Yeah, exactly. It needs to be seasoned with people to be able to trust me enough, or trust the product and the enjoyment of it enough to be able to be like, a sour sounds shit, but I've never had anything bad from there, so let me dip my toe in the water. So I'm really, if I could do a sour this batch coming up, I would. But I think it would be it would be hard to move that stock fast enough. Or maybe I should just say, whatever, I'm going to do it. I don't know. You planted a seed. Maybe the next
maybe you should just look back at your logo and just say, jump.
Yeah. Maybe I should.
Look at us just coming up with things to produce. Yes, hashtag beer time. Hey, we're back, baby.
Okay, the next batch is a sour. It's going to be a. Yeah, I'll see, but I can't give you any.
No, that's fine. You've given us plenty.
I'm still trying to hint myself here.
No, that's good. But listen, I'm sure no matter what you produce, it'll be a humdinger, and we look forward to it. But I think that's a great place to kind of leave it. I want to thank you for your time, and it feels good to be back. It feels good to get a bit of a sweat on. People don't know this when they listen, but I get a bit of a sweat on in the first 5 minutes because it's go time. I think I'm just used to the live radio feed where it's like, you can't stop. You have to go.
Yeah. You have to go, and it is. If you stumbling a little bit, you've got nothing to talk about. Like when you left, you're like, I'm gonna go get my beer. I'm like, oh shit. What do I say? Because there are hundreds of thousands of people tuning in, so you don't want to sound stupid in front of a lot of people.
250,000 people. No, exactly. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So,
a 250,000 is on the low end. So yeah, I mean, you want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward for the listener out there.
Whether they're bots or whether they're
trying to learn English.
Trying to learn it, yeah. Maza, always a pleasure. And I think people should go drink more of this extra hoppy lager, because it is fantastic. It is the beer of summer 2021. And yeah, I think we should do this again. Maybe.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's always an absolute treat. Like I said earlier, I could carry on. If we stop recording, we'll probably be on for another 3 or 4 hours, just you and I. So we can say goodbye to everyone else, and we can just carry on. You
can just smack talk. But that's.
Yeah. Absolutely love it. It's been fantastic to be back. It feels like riding a bicycle. So thank you so much for having me.
Lekker. To all our listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. And I look forward to bringing you more #Beertime stories in the future. And I've already planned a few exciting speakers for the next #Beertime 2.0. So let's see you then. Cheers.
Cheers, Bernie.